But in more stories, Cosas President John Macheke has lambasted teachers who still use corporal punishment at schools. The Congress of South African Students has also addressed issues of change in the curriculum. The student organization is calling for the history subject to be amended. Cosas believes the subject in its current form is not reflective of true and lived experiences of all South Africans. And now joining us live for more details on this story is AfroWorldView reporter Cindy Siwe Twala. Good afternoon to you, Cindy. Thank you so much for joining us. A brief summary of what exactly transpired in that meeting this afternoon.
A very good afternoon to you as well as the viewers at home. Like you correctly cited, it was a mouthful of a briefing coming from John Macheke, Cosas president, but for him to sum it up himself so that we get the gist of what exactly this particular briefing was about, I have him with us. A very good afternoon to you. Just in a few seconds, can you just sum up what exactly your briefing was about? You touched on a number of issues. You touched on agriculture being made a subject or made a requirement or major subject, citing it also in context with what's happening in our country in terms of expropriation without compensation, a topic that is trending. What else do you think is something that will sum up this particular briefing?
As Congress of South African Students, we feel that it's very important that agriculture becomes part of our subjects now, mainly because we can't say that we are calling for land without expropriation compensation. Now we must be able to prepare young people to be able to use those lands. Now, as Congress of South African Students, we took a first call in making sure that agriculture becomes a subject and becomes compulsory in our schools. History becomes compulsory in our schools, and our learners are able to learn the South African history, not a Western colonial history, the history that will not benefit the country. We want them to learn the history that will benefit the country. For an example, you have a mine called Big Hole. That Big Hole mine is a diamond mine that was dug by our own African people using their own hands. Now it shows that there is too much history of South Africa that our learners must be able to learn. And also we're speaking about the issue of scholar transport, the issue of safety of learners in our schools, the issue of sanitation. One learner wants 2 packs of sanitary towels. It remains a problem in our own country. So as Congress of South African Students, we are saying that these issues must be resolved by the Department of Education. Failure to do so, the Department of Education, the entire administration must leave our offices, and we'll put new people in those offices.
Then in terms of, you mentioned decolonizing of our history and so forth. You also mentioned in the briefing that it's best that students be given an opportunity rather to learn in their own mother tongue, to answer in their own mother tongue. I asked you, do you have a plan in place on how this could be in terms of the feasibility because of a shortage of teachers currently?
Yes, for an example, the shortage of teachers that specialize in African languages is caused by a problem of not having provincial language units. Now, in the entire country, we have only one province that has a language unit, which is Eastern Cape. Now, what's in the Department of Education must stop eating the budget of provincial language units. They must start implementing provincial language units, because those provincial language units develop different books in different languages and make sure that education is transferred and it's being able to be transferred to our learners in their own language of choice.
And then lastly, you said fight fire with fire. Are you essentially saying that if teachers do something to learners, learners must retaliate or the likes? What exactly are you saying?
We are saying that corporal punishment was long being abolished in our own schools. Now, there must not be any corporal punishment. Where there is imbalance, there must be balance. Now, if teachers beat our learners, we are saying learners must be united in making sure that corporal punishment is abolished. Now, that is the response of fight fire with fire. We are saying learners must not beat teachers. But when teachers use corporal punishment, our learners must be able to respond. Because remember,
respond how?
Respond in different ways.
Like?
You can respond by standing up to a teacher and saying, enough is enough. We as learners, we don't want you to beat us as learners in the entire class of this class of grade A or grade B. We don't want you to beat us. You've been beating us. We're not your punching bag. Therefore, if you want to beat something, you must go and buy a punching bag and beat it.
And then in terms of your, you also made a very big pronouncement saying that you're going to traverse into SASCO's mandate and make sure that those students that were part of Fees Must Fall are also assisted or released from jail. How exactly are you going to do this?
Yes, we're going to engage in different people. Remember, this issue is not only an issue of SASCO, it's an issue of different organizations, which means we're going to work with different organizations in making sure that those student political activists are released. Remember, I think that after we received free education, I thought when President Cyril Ramaphosa came into the office, the first thing that he will do is to make sure that those learners that were arrested during Fees Must Fall campaign are released, and those which are attending courts, their courts are being dropped, because they did not do anything wrong. It's like you wanting to arrest Babu Nelson Mandela for fighting against the apartheid regime. It is wrong wanting to arrest Mama Winnie Madikizela Nomzamo Mandela for fighting against the apartheid regime. So I was saying they did nothing wrong. They were fighting for the rights of our learners. The Freedom Charter speaks about the doors of learning and culture shall be open to all. Therefore, they were fighting for that thing. And also the Constitution of South Africa says all learners must receive free, basic and quality higher education. So it is up to us as young people that we make sure that our government implement these things. So those people, those young people will be relieved. Starting on Monday, me and my Secretary General Nkobo Komongo will be starting in a campaign in making sure that those political activists that were arrested are being released.
If not, what will happen?
If not, it's simple. We will return to 1976. We have no choice but to ungovern the country, to make sure that the country stops until those young people are released. The very same way we did when Mandela was released in jail. Young people marched and said, Sussex sending a 4 o'clock, so Kululu Mandela. And then, yet Mandela was released. Then Mandela became the president of the country. We'll also do that thing. Those young people will be released in jail. We'll make sure that we stop the entire country from functioning until they are released.
And then lastly, to be fair, your constituency is basically students in high school and primary. So are you saying those students will stay at home?
No, we're not saying those students will stay at home. Those students will be with us, making sure that those political activists, their cases are dropped and they go out of jail. Remember, this thing, they did not fight for themselves alone, but they were fighting even for the generation that will come after us. And those generations are those learners which are in primary schools. I'm saying the government must arrest those white people that stole our land and stop arresting our own political activists. They must go and arrest those
Thank
students.
you so much. For the sake of time, that was quite an engagement, a mouthful actually, from the president of Cosas. So only time will tell. He's saying from Monday next week they'll be hard at work engaging SASCO, engaging the likes, and also going back to their own people and trying to find ways to release the likes of Mcebo Dlamini, who are going to be going to court rather, or to make sure that those cases are dropped. He's also mentioned the likes of those that are already in jail, such as Kanya Tegesha and the likes, to be released. But only time will tell. You also cited on the fight fire with fire. It's only a matter of time to see what will actually transpire. Back